Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
All right, welcome to Revolution's Meet Your Congregation. We're sitting here with Robert, a regular attendee here in the physical church. Robert, how long have you been coming? Like a year?
I want to say about a year.
Yeah.
About a year, maybe a little bit more.
I think a little more.
A little more. Yeah, but definitely not less.
Okay. What brought you in?
Well, I was attending a church previously, and it just wasn't, I mean, they were fine. But it just wasn't really, I didn't really feel quite at home. And I think it's important, like when you go to a place where people get together and they talk about God and such, it's just, I think it's important to find a place where you just feel comfortable. You could be yourself. You could feel at home. Yeah.
Cool.
You know, it's funny because we're a bit of a struggling congregation here in person. We're like basically recording a podcast live.
Yeah.
But but you still come back. You know, even though we're not like hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Is that attractive, or is that just an incidental feature of the church?
A little bit of both. That's attractive and incidental. I think I don't need to go to a mega church. I've been to one, pretty much all my life.
You used to work at one, right?
I used to work at one, yeah. At my old Romanian Pentecostal mega church back in Phoenix. But what I like about Revolution is that it's not. I tried to explain this to people, but it's kind of hard to explain because people, when you say the word church, it conjures up like all these different ideas, visuals, preconceived notions of what that means. And Revolution is not that kind of place. I think if you're looking for a place that has liturgy, it doesn't have that. If you have an idea of, I want a choir, it doesn't have that, or a worship team with fog machines and lights. It's not that.
We need to get a fog machine.
Definitely.
That'd be awesome, actually.
Yeah. Some laser lights behind me.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
The exact same service, only now we have a fog machine. Nothing else changes.
No. It's a fog machine.
Yeah, so it's not that, and I say it's okay. It doesn't have to be that. I really appreciate the simplicity, the rawness. It is a place where it is what it is, and we are who we are, and we come in the state that we're in, and that's okay. It's not a place where you have the woman at the front door shaking your hand, giving you a little bulletin of that day, and have that, plastic smile, and you walk in, and then you don't have the, kind of two-faced drama of like sitting next to a person. Oh, I haven't seen you here in a couple of weeks. How have you been? But they're really wanting to know the dirt.
Yeah.
And it's not that kind of place.
We follow you on Instagram, so we know the dirt.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not. You come here, and you are who you are, and we all love each other and accept each other, and it's a beautiful thing. And it's pretty much like a live recording, and you just sit in and you get to engage. And I know whoever speaks, Jay or Caleb, you engage with the audience, and it's a really unique, different experience. And I think it's important for people to understand that if, for instance, if you have church PTSD and you just can't go in a physical space, this is a really great option. Or if there's certain things, like I still like the liturgy and the beautiful church and the ambiance. I think it's beautiful. But the stuff they say sometimes I don't always see eye to eye with as far as theological views. And, even though they're accepting of, the gays and all that stuff, it's more like, I don't know about that. I don't know if I still believe that. So it's great to come to a space where, that's not challenged and you're not put in a box. So this is what you have to believe.
How'd you find out about Jay initially?
I think through the podcasts, because I'm a big podcast listener. And I think he was a guest a while back, and then I kind of followed, on the social medias, Jay. And then once I decided to leave the previous church here in Minneapolis for something a little different, I Googled you guys and searched you guys and decided to show up.
Nice. Cool. Do you want to talk a little bit about your Bro Bear blog and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Just as a
sure.
quick little plug.
Yeah,
I feel like what you're doing is really important.
Yeah, I think so too. And then just to kind of head that up, I think sometimes our people think our congregation is all one type of person. Mm-hmm. And it's clearly, we are not one type of person. You'll notice that from this interview to the following interview to another interview. I think maybe Robert would be someone that people would think would come to Revolution. You know,
Right.
He's got tattoos. He's got a couple tattoos. He's gay. He's a bear. You know, but actually we have such a diverse congregation.
We do.
But yeah, talk a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so basically, in short, I came out a number of years ago, and before that I was attending a super conservative Romanian Pentecostal megachurch in Phoenix. So people don't really know that there is a large population of Romanians in Phoenix, but also like the coastal places like LA and New York and Oregon and such, and Chicago. I felt that there's not a huge amount of people that are gay that are also spiritual or Christian, that are there's not enough of us out there, is what I'm trying to say. And there's even fewer in the Romanian world, Romanian American world. So I felt like I had to kind of explore what it means to be a gay Christian or a person that is gay and believes in God, and kind of not only just what that means, but like my life experiences. And so I've started writing on my blog, just life experiences, theological views, responding to the culture of what's going on. And it's been very impactful. You know, there's people that have reached out to me from different parts of the world, and even back in Phoenix, that know that I'm doing this, and it's helping them, and they just really thank you for doing this. Like there's nobody for them to look up to. And it's a little bit of pressure, and there's in no way am I perfect, but I am somebody that stands up and says, I'm gay, I'm a quote unquote Christian, and I'm Romanian, and here this is who I am, whether you like it or not. I'm just going to be who I think I'm created to be.
Yeah,
that's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Well, Robert, I know I'm always encouraged by your presence here and just your spirit, and I've hung out with you and your husband before, and he's amazing.
Yeah.
And he's not a big church attender.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
He's a group Reformed Jew.
Okay.
So he's Jewish, and even though he's not really practicing, that's still part of his heritage. And there was, during our early stages of our relationship, I kind of had not only to make sense of me coming out and this whole God thing and the gay thing and all this stuff, but also him, not going to church or not believing the same things I believe. And so, it was really kind of it challenged what my upbringing was and what I was told, and how do I make sense of this?
Wow, yeah. It's a lot to process. Yeah, it's a lot of shifting elements of your worldview kind of being reconstructed, or coming to terms with what your worldview was that you maybe didn't even acknowledge up until that point.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
And I had to really, to use the term is deconstruct a lot, and have the pieces in front of me and say, what does this mean? Was this just passed on to me, this idea? What is the reality? You have to really break it down and look into it to make sense, because we all grew up with an infrastructure that was handed down to us, from an early age in church to Sunday school to, our parents. And what you realize is that they're also handing down an infrastructure they were raised in. And so from, generation ons. And so you really have to kind of be punk and say, I'm not going to, adopt these ideas or philosophy, and I'm going to just kind of see for myself and critically think about things, and that's really important.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. I just think a lot of people have that similar situation in their relationships. So I thought it was just something.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Unequally yoked.
Yeah, that's that old chestnut.
Yes. I wrote about that.
Oh, did you?
I did because to our conversation, it was actually a devotional series for the Our Bible app, and it talked about what unequally yoked means and what it meant, and how David and I's interfaith relationship kind of how we made peace with it and how we made it make it work. So, very, very aware with.
How can people check out your blog?
Yeah, just go to brobearblog.com. And I'm on the social medias as well. Mostly Instagram, I would say. Not so much Twitter. I have a love-hate relationship with Twitter.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
There's some certain things
Twitter.
like that I like, just post their very like Christian mystic kind of things there. But there's also like all these toxic things that are out on Twitter, and it drains me.
I'm curious with your relationship with David and the whole unequally yoked thing. Did it sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to kind of process. It sounds like maybe you knew in your heart that there was nothing wrong with, well, first off, being with a man, second off, being with someone who's not Christian.
Yeah.
Was it something where you kind of had to, like, I'm going to kind of parallel it with what Jay was talking about earlier about, like, how he came to be affirming through the Bible? Like, was it something where you went through scriptures to try to re-understand maybe passages and stuff like that, or was it like you already had this conviction in your heart and then you worked from there? Like, how did that deconstruction happen?
The coming out kind of forced me into reevaluate a lot of things and what does it mean. So I did research. I read books. So I read the book called Torn, which is a great resource and book. And also there's a book by Colby Martin. The title escapes me, but it just breaks it down in a theological way and, the original meanings of the words. And you have to think about culture, what it meant back then, and all of these preconceived notions. So I really did a lot of research because I had to really make sense of it for myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't just, say, hey, this is, love is love, and have a very superficial view. I had to really understand it for myself before I could ever go to that next level.
Well, I'm sure that we have a lot of listeners who have similar stories or overlap in their stories as you. What would you say maybe to listeners who still value Christianity, but maybe their sexuality has been a big barrier between them and their church, the church community, or who are even triggered by being in a church, who maybe just listen online? I'm not saying that you need to talk them into one way or the other, but I mean, this is a microphone. It's a pretty big microphone in front of you. Like, what would you say to those people?
What I've found out is there's a lot of instilled fear, and there was a guy that a friend on Instagram friend that messaged me, and he expressed how terrified he was to even think about the notion of challenging the views that he was raised with. He has a lot of self-hate. He's tried to hurt himself. He's, in the outward kind of Instagram world, he's out, and he's very liberal, but he just, really expressed how he struggles with just feeling like he is going to hell no matter what. And I think that's a lot to process, and there's a lot of people that have that instilled fear in them that they can't look for answers, or they can't challenge because they're afraid of false teachers and false prophets, and all these misinterpretations by the conservatives to try to keep people in one little box. And my response to him was, just look into Jesus. To start off with, look into him as a Jew, number one, because he was a Jew, not a Christian in the sense that we see it today. it's not white evangelicalism. It's not Republican. It's look at him and study him as a Jew, culturally, from historians, from authors that have written books about him as a Jew, and just start there, because really you can't upset God with that. If you believe that God would be upset with you going outside of the lines, you can't be upset with that. And what happens is when you start looking into who Jesus was, from a Jewish perspective, I think you start realizing that what you were taught is not exactly true, and it's a totally different worldview than what we have today.
It really is. It really is. When you start to realize what the Bible is, you've been told, and what you've been told is it's night and day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Night and day.
That's great advice as an in. Like, this is safe, right? Like, okay, let's start here,
Yes.
Let's start Jesus.
You can't go wrong.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, God can't be mad at you.
Right.
There's another really great book called A Time to Embrace by Stacy Johnson that I recommend to folks, too. Check that out. So I guess with our last question.
Not that we need to wrap up, but we can pull this apart as much as we want. I'm sure Robert has some good advice on this.
Yeah. I mean, our feedback, we've been asking folks, what could we do more of? What could we do less of?
What can we do better?
What can we do better?
What can we do worse?
Yeah. What can we do worse? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the conversation is how can we, I mean, this is obviously an effort to try to get the community to know each other. But what steps do you think we should take or could take or should take? Or
Yeah, I think what's happening here is amazing. I feel that there is sort of a sleeping giant, waiting to awaken, and I think it's amazing. I think harkening back to the beginning of our conversation, this is really kind of at the precipice of this online community and this online world, because people don't always go to church. They can't go to church. And there's this listening community that we have that are so interconnected. I think just probably more online presence and being more on the socials, being more involved, and having that conversation. I know that you guys just launched the Facebook group.
Per your suggestion.
Yes, absolutely. Because we are everywhere. We're not in just one place, and it's not a traditional church. So having a place like the Revolution group, you could have conversations and talk and post things and say, hey, what do you think about this? And you could have dialogue with listeners and people. So.
Yeah. That's definitely where we're headed.
Yep. Yep, and that can be a little plug too for listeners right now. As we got the group, it's bare bones right now, but we're gonna try to get some more conversations going there. And Bob even mentioned to me last week about maybe starting to do live streaming, like video streaming, maybe through Facebook of sermons and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what Jay you did this morning, where you put a question out there on Instagram and you have feedback and you answer questions. That's a really great way to not only engage the community, but also, help them answer questions, feel more of a close community than otherwise. So I think that's a really great thing.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, it's been kind of cool to do.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Robert, so much for coming to Revolution, being a part of Revolution, and
everything. I love it. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Cool. Awesome.